Recording in progress.
Good day. Welcome to the Africans in America podcast. With me is Weruche Uzoka.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, Weruche. Uh, the we the upheavals in African politics is still going on, especially with the recent testimony by US General Michael Langley, the head of the US Africa Command. General Langley asserted that Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso was misusing his country's gold reserves, and for that reason, he should be removed. But for those of us who understand what goes on in great power politics in the world, we know that a very benign statement, although it was made assertively in the U.S. Congress, has greater implications. In fact, it's very ominous for the region and for Ibrahim Traore particularly, because we are talking about the head of a U.S. command of African command going to Congress to go and start to sow the seeds of an insidious attempt to take action against Ibrahim Traore. And we don't know what kind of action will be planned and eventually executed. So
yes.
in that light, we want to discuss the geopolitical implications of this attempt to arrest him, or this call for his arrest, in his that has been made by the U.S. General to Congress. We will follow the pattern of the last video, the video where Weruche deployed extensive journalistic skills. First is the Africans in America podcast, Weruche, and then soon we may be losing you to CNN or to Sky News.
At this rate, Al Jazeera. Because
but before we get there, we want to
I have absconded.
Yeah, we want to thank you for your continued support. The subscriber numbers are growing up, which is blowing up. We're very impressed. We're very grateful for that, and we're grateful also for the followership. We're seeing that more of our subscribers are becoming repeat viewers of our podcast. Thank you for that. Weruche, are you ready to deploy your questions at me?
Yes. It's important we're specific to what could go wrong. You know, already the call on his arrest or for his arrest has riled up the entire internet and the entire Africa. And so it's important we keep our eye on this topic. That's kind of one of the purpose of even having to, speaking about this again is to keep our eye on this topic because it's developing and we want to state the facts as they are. This is beyond our emotion. This is just let us analyze it critically to see what could go wrong or, the impending doom basically is what we're trying to analyze. All right. So my first question for you is, how does Traore's pivot to Russia? It's very important we address this relationship. How does Traore's pivot to Russia, including military cooperation with the Wagner Group and diplomatic engagement at Russia-Africa summits, challenge Western influence in the Sahel? And what long-term risks does this pose for regional stability?
Yeah, in the last video we did, I addressed a lot of these points raised in this question. I mentioned that at the heart of all of this is great power politics and the shifting dynamics of neocolonial power and hold in the Sahel. And this is a strong one because the Sahel represents quite a lot, if nothing else at all. A country like Niger Republic represents one of the biggest reserves of uranium, which is very important to nuclear armed states like France and America. But beyond that also, I think on a personal level, I want to think that Michael Langley, from the way and his body language, when I saw him making that congressional the position was that he probably looks down at Captain Traore and says, "This is a captain, I'm a general. This can't be happening," and all that. I think he tends to believe that it can bring to bear the full might of America's power, on him, especially as those three countries have systematically kicked out France, and in very very clear terms, kicked out America. America had a recently opened command there in Niger, in Agadez. I said it last time. They have an air base where they populated the main aircrafts in that air base were MQ Reapers. They were drones. And with those MQ Reapers, they could oversee almost all the countries. They could get intelligence on all the countries in the Sahel region.
Mm-hmm.
Their focus may have been the Sahel and the Sahara Desert, but they equally could have used those MQ Reapers to spy on countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, and all the other countries around there. And when they were told to leave, and in the midst of all these geopolitical happenings, especially with the Ukraine war, the American chose, rather than fight and cause a scene, because they were concentrating their energies in Ukraine war, and they have other places, chose to just quietly. But that's a very big blow, and I don't think we know that America has long memory, like an elephant memory. They'll come back for it. It's very insidious. The implications of that. Me and you live in this country, and we know that this is a country that's a stickler for procedures. When it has gone to Congress, and when the general commanding the African command is calling to question Ibrahim Traore's use of his country's asset. This is asset that had been blatantly abused and used recklessly. But now he says that he is using it for Ibrahim Traore's private use. Who is he to make these assertions anyway? But there was a big pushback, and Ibrahim Traore's government said no. We are taking these assets from the people who always controlled it, and we're trying to redistribute wealth to our people. But we should also know gold at this point in time is also another part of the geopolitical tool going on there. Somehow, in the changing realities of geopolitics and the economic framework of the world, gold has assumed a very high level, because as confidence is being lost in American bond and American dollar by countries like Russia, countries like China, and countries like Saudi Arabia, a lot of them have turned to gold. So gold has gained in price. I think gold is over $4,000 an ounce now, and it has gained serious value. And a lot of countries are moving their reserves and putting it's now a sanctuary asset for a lot of countries. So gold has become so much more valuable than you will ever think. It has grown in value and all that. So the gold reserves has brought attention to Burkina Faso. And that is the excuse, but it is not just that. That's not just the excuse. There's this invite of Russia and this growing influence of Russia within the Sahel region, not only within the Sahel region, right all the way down to the Atlantic. Russia is opening bases in Gambia, in Senegal, and all these other places, and displacing traditional power structures that used to have influence in that neighborhood. So we may see a situation where the gun is trained on Ibrahim Traore as it was trained on Gaddafi. We may see a situation where
I don't want to profess that. Don't even put that energy out there. Don't say we may see.
No, but
we're not going to see that. No.
When you become a target of geopolitics.
Yeah, but you don't want. It's too heavy a statement to put out there. I don't subscribe to it. The next question is, given the recent failed coup plot allegedly orchestrated from Ivory Coast, to what extent could Western nations be implicated in destabilizing Traore's regime, and how does that reflect historically? How does this reflect historical patterns of intervention in the Sahel? Again, it was discussed. We've talked about their imposition, I want to call it, right?
Yes.
On that region over time.
Yes.
But the question is, go ahead. I forgot I'm asking the questions. I wanted to talk.
Oh no, don't worry. You can
No, it's okay.
even though you're
We
asking
need
the
you, we
questions, you
need
can
your
very well
expert
put your
advice.
own
It's okay.
opinion.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is what I know. For long, there's been a lot of coups. In fact, in one of my books I wrote, I found out that there were, at that time, long ago, not now, there were well over 45 successful coups in Africa. It has gone up since then. And most of these coups were against democratically elected governments that the system did not like. We should remember that there was a time when the geopolitical battle was between US and the Soviet Union. And any politician who tended to show inclination towards socialism became a threat to the American way of thinking, and he would almost ultimately be removed. And that was what happened to Patrice Lumumba. That was what happened to Kwame Nkrumah. That was what happened to quite a lot of all these people who we know eventually from declassified documents that the CIA supported the coups that removed them. And in Ibrahim, they've always had a long history of intervention. The CIA has had a long history. In fact, Jeffrey Sachs, the renowned Democrat development economist, always says that the CIA has been involved in over 190 coups across the world. It's not a hidden thing. It's there for everybody to see. Once you stand against the worldview of the American state, they will find a way to destabilize you, and they have done it successfully using the instruments, NGOs, and other things. So when we see a media campaign rolled out against Ibrahim Traore, the use of NGOs, the use of paid mercenaries, it won't be a surprise. It's a sustained campaign. It will never end. We saw a very long running campaign against Assad, the Syrian president. It was a sustained campaign that lasted over 20 years, and eventually he fell. His government collapsed in a day. Same thing too happened to Gaddafi. Then they train their eyes on you. They use instruments of sanctions. They empower your opponents. They find systems like in Patrice Lumumba's case. It was a sad one. Patrice Lumumba was arrested by the COA somewhere along the line. They caught him and they handed him over to rebels. And it was the rebels who eventually killed him. Same thing too happened with Gaddafi. They bombed the hell out of Libya. He had nowhere to run. And then they helped using intelligence to direct the Libyan rebels to where he was hiding. It's really it's not a good thing when the American juggernaut trains its eyes on you. When these days it's only left to the Russians to be able to play a more active role. I think they are not being nice like they used to be again, so they have to play an active role in supporting this new nascent um, um, coalition that is going on there, the Sahel coalition. As at this moment, they are very fragile. I don't know if they can last if there's, but Europe and America have other interests at heart, and that's the only thing that will make them escape the spotlight for this moment and at this time.
That's so should I call it scary to hear? Scary for the people of the region, especially considering, their strength, and the fact that if indeed these two Western nations really decide it's what they're going to do, they have the means and resources. And Africa is not one to say that we have like intense unity amongst the countries at this time. And so what does that now, what's that going to do in the region, considering he's alone, really, and the people who are like in the Sahel region or whatever, they're not as strong. So what's that going to do if you already know right out the gate that quite a number of those African state leaders can jeopardize or sabotage their
Yeah,
just you
there's
with
a
a
reason
little
for that.
golding, yeah, with a little golding here and there and a couple of promises here and there, that they'll sell him out. So it's a very tricky situation. My next question for you is Burkina Faso's gold refinery. I know we always refer to this gold in particular, so let's talk about it. Burkina Faso's gold refinery initiatives and mining reforms aim to reduce reliance on foreign actors. Okay. Could Western sanctions or arrests related to Traore accelerate Russian or Chinese resource extraction in the region, undermining local economic sovereignty? Because yes, at this time they seem to be allies, right? But everybody has hope or something to try to, you're not going to support a person if the person is completely useless to you. So their interest too is also should be questioned. Is kind of, So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the sad thing about things like gold is that it's so capital intensive. You almost always cannot be able to do it yourself. It's almost like Nigerian oil. You don't have the skills, the know-how, and the expertise, and besides that, the machinery to extract gold from the ore and all that. So what usually happens is that it is mined, and then most of the processing is done outside of Burkina Faso. Most
Mhm.
of it. I really don't know what kind of processing is done within Burkina Faso, but I know
Didn't
that
he start recently to get he's building his own refinery and
it
all of
it
that?
probably will be a situation where he has called in the Chinese to come and help, to come and build plants to do that. And this is it. The Chinese are the only ones at this moment in time. The Chinese are about the only country in the world at this time that can almost, without recourse to anything, process almost every single ore out there.
Mhm.
No, every single ore from gold to they are the ones who took mining seriously, and they have backfilled and they have controlled all the supply chains, but they are the ones who do the refining.
Mhm.
What they tend to prefer to do is to take the raw ore and then take it all the way to China and then process it and refine it there and get out the gold. Probably they will hold it um, uh, um, um, in lieu for the Burkinabe, and they have an accounting system. I really don't know how that is done regarding
Yes.
Burkina Faso, but Burkina
Mhm.
Faso doesn't can't do it by themselves. They don't have the technology, the know-how, the capital, and they will need the Chinese. It's only the Chinese who can step up. Only them who can step up and yeah, and because I already, if you're taking any of those mines from any of the existing incumbents, it will probably be a French country or a company or a Canadian company, and
Mhm.
that will mean that you're giving it to a Chinese company to run. But that they have a ministry or a know-how in Burkina Faso that can do that, no. So they will still need those other players, and that's what is riling the Americans and the
Mhm.
West, because that would mean that more bigger footprint for China and Russia within that space. So that displacement
Indeed.
simply means you have to replace them with some other person who has a know-how. And
Mhm.
probably they also have a different kind of agenda, and they may have more transparency in their operations with the Burkinabe government. That may be what one of the reasons too, and all that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, what legal frameworks justify the West's arrest of a sitting head of state? And how might this precedent affect international norms of sovereignty, particularly in Africa?
Well, the Michael Langley and his cohorts in they are going through a normal playbook, the old playbook that the American Pentagon and the American policymakers used to pursue, which is to go and whack the hell out of small power countries, small countries, like overthrowing Norega and finding you can bet this one here where a man is a sovereign head of state and is using it. I mean, they have instruments, they have corruption instruments, they have instruments by which you can go and adjugate in a sovereign country and tell them that they are using their own resources and you don't like the way they are using their resources. So I feel this is an excuse in an opening in an opening act of an intent to say this is the reason why. We are trying to bomb them. We are trying to remove him,
Because
and we are trying to do anything.
they have
There are
looked
no
for
legal
reasons and
frameworks by
there's
which you
no
can do it.
mm-hmm.
There are no legal frameworks by which you can go to another country and remove him. He is not a democratically elected person. He's a military person, and he has gained sovereignty, and the people has somehow he has gained the sovereignty of the country. He has put together there's still judiciary, there are still other structures of government somehow still existing, but he is now recognized as sovereign. So you're a military officer calling for his removal, his arrest. It's that I don't know what kind of legal framework. We have situations where some people have been accused of war crimes. Some people have been accused of so many things, like happened in Sudan. They couldn't
Yeah.
remove the Sudanese president until he was removed in a coup. You just can't unless he travels to America and then they use some instruments and then they arrest him in America. But beyond that, I don't know how they will come to his country and arrest him.
Mm-hmm. Traore's populist appeal hinges on mobilizing youth through anti-colonial narratives. Could his arrest galvanize a new wave of militarized Pan-Africanism, echoing Sankara's legacy? Because I already see it. This question is really, as you know, it's online already. You can see the effect with everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people suddenly speaking to the importance of letting him be, and then also going back in history to reference the West and the imposition and all of that. So the reality is that without meaning to answer the question, please go ahead.
No,
I
you
asked
go
the question
ahead. Go
and I'm
ahead.
answering. No, it's okay. We want to hear your view. That was the plan for today. So
Oh
I'm
well,
listening.
nobody saw this backlash, especially not only the backlash against Michael Langley, but the immense show of support on, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have social media and we didn't have this kind of outpouring that that captures the sentiments of the ordinary people in Africa. So we also we have something against being told how to run our business in Africa. We've been told how to run our business for a long time, but we also have had leaders who have meant well for the continent. How did they end up? When you have Patrice Lumumba and you have Nkrumah and then you have Mandela and you have Gaddafi, these were all populist people who did not particularly have a good time with history because of their populism represented a challenge to a status quo that didn't like it, So, but I'm pretty sure that Michael Langley himself and all the congressmen did not expect this uprising and all that. But if anything is going to save Ibrahim Traore, it has nothing to do with how he was defended on social media. It is more to do with the fact that America has other priorities now. America is focused on other places. There are challenges in Iran. There are challenges with the Houthis. There is a clear and present challenge of China's growth. And the Ukraine war is something they want to find a way to finish. So they are trying to redeploy their resources and re-strategize and create a new chessboard, because the world is fracturing into three major parts. It's becoming tripolar. The Russians have withstood very strong attack on their sovereignty and an attempt to bring NATO close to their doors. They have asserted themselves in a way that nobody expected, and that has become an eye opener to people in the West there that maybe we really need to restructure so this is the reality that America finds itself. So America is not running after small fries now. Ibrahim Traore may survive this period, and who knows, he may consolidate. I think going forward, Michael Langley will not have the traction he wants in Congress to come after him. So they may just keep it by the corner, and who knows how long he himself is going to be there. We have a situation where many of his colleagues are in this Trump administration, people who started the process with him, many of the military people in Pentagon have been removed. I won't be surprised if he also will not be there for too long. This is just the reality of this administration. But they do have other priorities, and that may just be what will save Ibrahim Traore. We know all the people who have said a lot of
You
things
know
and
why
who are
it's
no
so
more,
funny?
who don't have a job anymore.
Indeed, because it's so funny. He's focused on another country. He doesn't even know his own reality and what could become his
It may
fate.
just be the last thing he says before he hears the announcement that is.
That is so funny.
Yes,
Okay,
let's
so
not forget that the Joint Chief of Staff has been removed. So many
it's
command heads,
unstable.
commands have been head of commands have been removed, and
Very
who
unstable
knows how long he
situation.
will be there?
That's
You
true.
know. Mm.
Yes, yes, yes. My next question, because you've answered most of it actually. The last one, actually, let me give it to you, is if Traore is removed, which he's not going to be removed, would Burkina Faso revert to Western aligned governance? Or might it deepen ties with non-Western actors? How could this reshape great power competition in Africa? This is going to be my
Okay,
last question.
it's already the you know what that famous saying that the horse has already left the stable. The West, France has lost a critical hold on whatever juju they used to use on West Africa. They've lost
Yes,
it.
they've lost it.
When a very benign and friendly country like Senegal tells France, please, thank you very much for 30, 40, 50, 60 years of
So,
partnership. I think we want to. Senegal in its Senegal, very benign, very nice, very francophone, francophile. They have told the French to leave, and the Russians have become entrenched in Central African Republic. That's where they even started their journey. The Wagner Group. From Central African Republic, now they are in Mali, they're in Niger. The Russians have insidiously moved in to fill the vacuum that many of these places. Because Russia, let's not forget one thing. World War II benefited Africa by accelerating decolonization of Africa. The Ukraine war has also benefited Africa by loosening the stranglehold of countries like France. It made the Western countries not to be interested in Africa and to be focused on a European country called Russia. So this stranglehold that they used to have, they've lost it. It's never going to come back again. China, meanwhile, in over 20 years, has systematically and proactively become an economic partner of many African countries. While Russia has remained number one security partner. So this is the reality now. Nobody is buying Rafale planes anymore. Many people want to be buying Turkish drones and Russian armaments and Chinese products. So this is the reality now. Things have changed, and I don't see, even if they remove Traore, if they do succeed somehow to remove him or eliminate him, I don't see how that is going to change anything.
Because the people have spoken, they don't want these countries invading their country anymore, stealing,
Yeah,
looting,
yeah.
taking resources.
The
That's
geopolitical tide has changed. Yeah, it has
yes,
changed.
yes, yes, because there's awareness now. People have learned, I'm big on sovereignty, self-governing, and if we want to
Hmm.
talk about governing, then we have to review critically they place these countries, it looks like just mining of gold, but there's a lot of control. When you control the resources of a location, of a place, you pretty much control the heartbeat because that's how they should get their money to improve their own governance. And if you go to the heart of what it is that they can get their money from and you hold on to it with two hands and refuse to let go, you're already sort of governing the region. You're sort of determining their outcomes. And in countries like Congo, when you really pay attention to what's going on, there's a lot of the aftermath of these oppressive systems that come to loot. It's still it's not wrong to use the word loot,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's what it is. And I think that, what's causing this to not to even take hold is the fact that everybody's waking up to the reality of these bigger the effect of these larger communities on the smaller ones. It's been a stranglehold for a minute. And it's
No, it's
important that we review honestly. If we can have those honest conversations, not imposing conversations where they sit in front of this place and talk. No, honest conversations about, okay, what have we given back to these small people that we have been draining? And these conversations are not just conversations based on only countries. These conversations are happening within even conglomerates and all that that take advantage of the people who work for them and drain them of the resources, but take the credit. It's happening in a lot of different ways. It's not just countries overseeing countries or taking advantage. Even individuals are, till today as we speak, are being their resources are being taken from them, while I have an article coming out in the Weruche magazine that has to do with this, where bigger companies are draining the smaller individuals of their resources. It's very interesting, but this is playing out on a country level, but even in our little companies here and there, and it's happening. So it's important we review, come back to the drawing board, review. How are you fairly compensating countries, be it groups? How are you fairly compensating them? Or do you hope to continue this this level of looting and theft? Do
no,
you hope that it will
it's gonna
continue in
stop.
the future? It has to stop because people have found their voices. People have found similar people also experiencing that, and the conversation is not going to end until it comes to an end. So yes, I love what's going on. I love that they're standing up against oppression, because that's what it is. That's another term for it. And I hope that it can be done without harm to anyone or wars. We don't need war when we can dialogue. We don't need
Yeah.
war. So yeah.
We At this point, we've come to the end of today's edition of the podcast. Our worry is that any conspiracy in all our African countries leads to geopolitical instabilities, and it leads
Yes.
to refugees and all these things. And we really worry about it. We want to thank you for reaching this part of the program with us. We hope you will subscribe, like, and share, and continue to watch our program and tell people about what we are doing. We remain Africans in America podcast. Our interest, our reality is America, but our interests will always continue to be Africa. Thank you,
Awesome.
Weruche, again. Thank you for
Thank you
your
too.
CNN questions, CNN and BBC.
I'll have more coming in our next recording.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You
All right,
guys, you
thank
have
you.
a good day. Yeah, goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.